Have you ever watched a woman go from, I don't care, to suddenly acting like she can't breathe the moment she realized she actually lost you? Because at first, nothing looks dramatic. There's no big goodbye, no final speech. You just stop chasing. You stop arguing. You stop feeding the connection with your attention. And then something shifts inside her. Her tone changes. Her curiosity returns. Her behavior gets strange, like she's waking up too late. Here's the disturbing truth. Most women don't feel loss when you're still emotionally available. They feel loss when access ends. When you stop reacting, you stop being predictable. And the moment you stop being predictable, the story in her head starts changing. Later, we'll get into the darkest part, why her missing you can be about you or about control, and how your next move decides whether you become a memory she respects or a man she can still pull back with one message. Reason 1. She feels the silence finally. And silence hits harder than arguments because it removes emotional access. Arguments still give her a way to measure her impact. Even if she's angry, she knows she can still move you. She can still trigger you. She can still pull emotion out of you like a lever. But when you go quiet, real quiet, she can't measure anything. No double texts, no explanations, no, can we talk? No late-night paragraphs. The quiet forces her to sit with what she used to distract herself from. And that's when she realizes you're not upset, you're gone. Without your attention, her confidence loses its mirror. Not because she's vain, because attention is feedback. It tells her where she stands. When you remove it, the absence of conflict can even feel like abandonment to her ego. She starts wondering if you detached before she did, if you emotionally left while she was still assuming she had you. Here's the moment everything quietly changes. The calm quiet is what makes it real, not the breakup itself. She can ignore words, she can brush off anger, but she can't ignore a man who stops needing to be heard. Reason 2. Your absence becomes real when she can't reset you with a quick message. When you were still around, even after tension, she could press the button. A hey, a meme, a casual question, and you'd respond, which told her the connection still existed, no matter what happened. Real absence breaks the routine of your availability. Her mind notices the gap in small moments first. A song, a place, a time of day when you used to be predictable. And then it stacks up, because the option becomes unavailable, and that triggers urgency in a way comfort never does. She realizes she can't reach you on demand anymore, and that's when consequences start replacing comfort. Not always immediately as sadness, sometimes as irritation, restlessness, checking her phone more than she should, noticing the emptiness where your attention used to sit. Here's the darker layer. Your absence makes you feel larger than you felt when you were present. When you were there, you were easy to undervalue. When you're gone, memory turns you into a symbol. Real absence turns memory into value. Here's the moment everything quietly changes again. She stops feeling like she has you and starts feeling like she lost access to something she assumed was permanent. Reason 3. She replays every moment, not because she suddenly became romantic, but because her mind is searching for control. Her brain starts reviewing the relationship like it's trying to find the exact point where she miscalculated. She reinterprets your calm as strength she underestimated. She remembers your effort only after it's no longer available. Small moments gain weight because they're all she has left. A look you gave her. A time you walked away instead of arguing. A time you didn't beg. A time you held your boundaries and didn't make it dramatic. Regret often begins as curiosity. What if I handled it differently? Not because she's suddenly humble, because uncertainty is uncomfortable, and her mind wants to rewrite the story into something that makes sense. She compares the peace now to the comfort she lost. She starts wondering where she pushed too far without noticing. This is the part nobody talks about. The replay isn't always love. Sometimes it's her mind trying to regain power by understanding what she can't influence anymore. When you're gone, she can't test you in real time, so she tests the past instead. Here's a mini hook you need to remember. A woman can miss you and still not be ready to take accountability. Missing is an emotion. Accountability is a choice. Those are not the same. Reason 4. Regret hits when access ends, because regret appears when consequences replace comfort. Losing you removes the safety net she took for granted. Access ending feels like power ending, and power loss stings, especially if she was used to being the one who could pull you back whenever she felt like it. She realizes your attention wasn't guaranteed. It was chosen. And choice is what makes it hurt. When you were always available, your presence felt like a resource. When you become unavailable, your presence starts feeling like value. Without your presence, she finally feels the emotional cost of her decisions, not because she's a villain, because reality has edges now. She can't just say later forever. She can't keep you in orbit while she figures herself out. The more final it feels, the stronger the regret becomes. And here's the detail that cuts. Regret grows when she sees you didn't fall apart without her. If you're still living, still moving, still stable, it forces her to face a harsh truth. Maybe you weren't as dependent as she thought. Maybe she misread your calm loyalty as weakness. Maybe she assumed you'd always return. She often misses the benefits first, then the bond later. She misses the attention, the emotional safety, the reliability. And only after that does she start missing the man behind it, if she ever does. That's why you have to be careful what you call love. Here's the moment everything shifts. When she realizes she can't get the same version of you back with the same old behavior. Here's the moment everything quietly changes again. She starts reaching out, but it won't look like a confession. It will look like a test. Reason 5. She tests if you're still available, because a breadcrumb message is usually a probe, not a surrender. She'll send something casual to avoid risking rejection. A random, hey, a question she doesn't need answered. A memory, a soft joke. She's testing if you'll respond fast like you used to, because your response speed becomes your value signal again. If you bite immediately, she learns she still has access, even after losing you. And once she learns she still has access, the urgency disappears. Not because she doesn't care, because the threat is gone. If you don't react, she feels the loss deeper and tests harder. The test is emotional. Do I still affect him? And if she can't get that answer through warmth, sometimes she'll try it through discomfort. She may create drama just to trigger a response. She may say something sharp just to see if you still have that old reflex to explain yourself. This is where men ruin everything. They interpret the breadcrumb as proof she misses them, and they flood her with availability. They send too much. They forgive too fast. They hand back the exact access she was testing for. And the moment you do that, you teach her the loss wasn't real. Here's a mini hook. The first message after loss is rarely about love. It's about leverage. It's about whether the door is still unlocked. Reason 6. Her ego starts negotiating. Because her ego hates being the one who lost control of the dynamic. She may rewrite the story to protect her pride. You changed. You became cold. You're acting different. That's not always a statement of fact. It's a way to avoid saying the real thing. I didn't think you'd actually leave. Negotiation starts as soft contact, then escalates if it fails. If the warm approach doesn't work, she tries guilt. If guilt doesn't work, she tries anger. If anger doesn't work, she tries nostalgia. She'll offer just enough warmth to pull you back into orbit without admitting vulnerability. If she feels replaced, her ego can turn urgent and possessive. Not necessarily because she wants you back as a partner, sometimes because she can't tolerate the idea of you being fine without her. She'll test your boundaries to see if they're real now, because if your boundaries weren't real before, she assumes they're not real now. This is the part nobody says out loud. Her ego often wants access back more than it wants accountability. Access lets her feel powerful again. Accountability forces her to face what she did with the power she had. Here's the moment everything quietly changes. The more calm you stay, the more she has to show her real intention, because she can't pull you with your old emotional reflexes anymore. Reason 7. Suddenly, you look more valuable, because scarcity triggers value. What's unavailable feels higher status. Your calm absence reads like self-respect, and self-respect attracts. When you stop chasing, you stop looking needy, and she feels it in her body before she can explain it in her head. The man who can leave becomes the man who chooses, and that flips the entire story. She starts noticing what you provided once it's missing: your steadiness, your presence, your effort, your willingness to be real. Things she ignored when they were free suddenly feel rare when they're gone. Your silence makes her wonder if other women see what she ignored. Not because she's paranoid, because the world gets loud when your private access disappears. And value increases when she realizes you weren't dependent on her. You become rare the moment you stop being easy to access. Here's the darker layer. Sometimes what she values isn't you. It's the power she had when you were chasing. And that's why the next phase is where everything gets dangerous. Because when she realizes she lost you, she doesn't just miss you. She misses the version of herself that felt in control. She misses being able to check you whenever she wanted. She misses the comfort of knowing you'd still be there even if she gave you less. And when that power disappears, she will often try to recreate it before she accepts it's gone. Now, up to this point, it's easy to focus on her behavior, her tests, her ego, her regret. But the real story isn't what she does when she loses you. It's what you do. Here's the inward flip, and it starts with a question that should make you uncomfortable. When she reaches out after losing you, do you respond like a man with a life, or like a man starving for proof? Because the most dangerous part of "she realized she lost you" is how it wakes up your ego, too. You start craving the feeling of being wanted again. You start imagining revenge. You start imagining her chasing. You start using her regret as a drug. And if you're not careful, you'll turn your own self-respect into a performance designed to get a reaction. That's why so many men lose the power they finally earned. They stay gone just long enough to trigger her, then they come back too fast, too warm, too available, because their real goal wasn't dignity. Their real goal was to feel chosen again. And the moment you make your silence a tactic instead of a standard, she can sense it. She'll feel the hunger underneath your calm. She'll feel that you're waiting for her to validate you. And once she feels that, the dynamic starts rebuilding the same imbalance you swear you escaped. So the question becomes brutal and simple. Can you stay gone without needing her reaction? Can you let her feel the loss without rushing to soothe it? Can you hold your boundaries without turning them into a punishment? Because if you can't, then she didn't really lose you. She just lost your attention for a moment. In the next part, we're going to go into the final shift: how she tries to reopen the door, why she'll escalate if you stay calm, and what happens when you truly remain unavailable. Because the moment you stay gone for real, it stops being about her regret and starts being about your identity. And most men don't fail because they don't know the right move. They fail because they can't tolerate the silence without turning it into a negotiation, without turning it into a game, without turning it into a way to get control back. And once you see that, you'll realize the hardest part of being lost to a woman isn't disappearing. It's staying disappeared even when she comes back with warmth, even when she comes back with nostalgia, even when she comes back with anger. Because that's the moment your old self tries to take the wheel again. And that's where everything either changes for good or returns to the same cycle. Because she doesn't come back the way you fantasize. She doesn't usually show up with a clean confession and a humble apology. She shows up like someone trying not to lose face. She shows up like someone testing the temperature of a room she no longer owns. And if you don't understand what you're looking at, you'll mistake a probe for love and hand her your power back with a smile. Reason 8. She tries to reopen the door, but she starts with something small because small protects her ego. "How have you been?" A random photo. A joke that has no purpose except to see if you still respond. It's not romance. It's reconnection without risk. If you respond fast, warm, eager, she learns the door never really closed. She learns she can still enter your life without paying the price of accountability, and then she relaxes. That's the part men don't want to accept. The urgency fades the moment she knows you're still available. She doesn't need to commit. She doesn't need to explain. She doesn't need to respect the new version of you. Because the new version of you just proved it's temporary. So if you want to see the truth, watch what happens after you respond. Does her effort rise, or does it flatten? Does she move toward you with clarity, or does she keep you in the same fog, warm enough to stay connected, vague enough to avoid responsibility? The pattern tells you whether she wants you, or whether she just wanted to know she still could. Reason 9. If you stay calm, she escalates, because the calm is what threatens her. When the door doesn't open easily, she'll try different keys. Softness first, then confusion, then guilt, then irritation, then nostalgia, then a sharp comment designed to pull emotion out of you. Because emotion is leverage. If she can make you react, she can measure her power again. This is why some women suddenly become dramatic when a man goes quiet. Not because they're insane, because they're trying to confirm they still matter to you. The test becomes emotional. Do I still affect him? And the moment you react, argue, defend, explain, accuse, you've given her what she was looking for. Proof. And proof is more satisfying than closure. Proof tells her she still has influence, even if she doesn't have you. That's why you have to treat her escalation like information, not like an invitation. Here's the part that's slightly dark. Some women don't miss the man. They miss the control. They miss being able to trigger you and watch you bend. They miss the comfort of knowing your attention was there as a safety net. When that safety net disappears, they don't always feel love first. They feel withdrawal. And withdrawal can look like affection. It can look like, I've been thinking about you. It can look like, I made a mistake. It can look like sudden warmth. But warmth that disappears once you return is not warmth. It's a hook. Reason 10. If you stay gone, she changes for good, but not always in the way you want. Staying gone forces reality. It forces her to accept that the old dynamic is dead, that the man she could take for granted is no longer accessible. And once she accepts that, one of two things happens. Either she comes back with real accountability, clear effort, consistent behavior, respect that doesn't require you to chase it, or she disappears completely and rewrites the story to protect her pride. She'll tell herself you were cold, you changed, you were never serious. Because her ego would rather label you than face the truth that she lost you through her own comfort and your own weakness. But here's what matters. Her story about you doesn't change your reality. If you stay gone, you remove yourself from the role of being her mirror. And without your attention reflecting her back to herself, she has to live with what she did. Not as punishment, as consequence. This is where the man becomes the center of the story again. Because the hardest part isn't making her realize she lost you. The hardest part is not getting addicted to her realization. You'll feel it. The moment she texts, your chest wakes up. The moment she shows curiosity, your ego gets loud. The moment she hints at regret, you want to savor it. You want to win. You want to prove something. You want to feel powerful after feeling discarded. And that's the trap. Because if you use her regret to feed your ego, you'll start doing stupid things. You'll respond just to keep her wanting. You'll play games to maintain the high. You'll become the kind of man who needs her attention again, just in a different costume. And she will sense that hunger. She always does. So the move is colder than what your emotions want. You keep your standards. You don't rush to soothe her. You don't reward vague messages with deep access. You don't give intimacy to someone who is still avoiding responsibility. You don't become available just because she finally became interested. Interest without consistency is just another loop. Here's a scene you've lived. She sends a message after weeks of silence. Your hands move faster than your mind. You reply immediately, trying to be cool, but your energy gives you away. Then you sit there staring at the screen, waiting for the next reply like your life depends on it. That's how you know you're not free. You're just paused. Real freedom is when her message doesn't control your nervous system. When you can read it, breathe, and decide from your standards, not from your cravings. When you can let her sit in the silence without rescuing her from the consequences of losing you. Because that's what a lot of men do. They rescue her from the discomfort of losing them. They reopen the door because they can't tolerate being the kind of man someone truly loses. They want to be good. They want to be mature. They want to be kind. But kindness without boundaries is just fear of being disliked. And fear is the reason she took you for granted in the first place. If you want everything to change for real, your absence has to be real. Not dramatic, not performative. Real. Real means you don't orbit. You don't check in. You don't lurk. You don't accept breadcrumbs. You don't let nostalgia rewrite the cost of what happened. You don't let her test you into being available again. And if she comes back with something genuine, it won't be vague. It won't be, "I miss you," followed by silence. It won't be late-night warmth and daytime distance. It will be clarity. It will be consistent effort. It will be accountability without you dragging it out of her. Because when a woman truly values a man she lost, she doesn't risk losing him twice with games. Here's the cold realization that ends this. When women realize they lost you, everything changes, yes. But what changes the most is the mirror it holds up to you. It shows you how many times you were available when you should have been selective, how many times you begged for access instead of requiring respect, how many times you taught someone your value was free. And if you don't learn that, you'll chase the same cycle again. You'll keep getting lost and found like you're a toy on a shelf, because you'll keep rewarding the same behavior with the same access. So don't be impressed by her regret. Be impressed by her consistency. And don't confuse her reaching out with her taking responsibility. If this made you see something you were avoiding, you already know what to do.